So now we have a front end, but we also need kind of an input field, right? So we can write the message, and we also need a submit button so we can send the message. So let's go and create those to this lesson. Now, we can just go and do it very basically if we want to, but I'm kind of a fan of start looking into the way that we should create forms later on for input, right? So let's start by going into the documents again right here on the Angle.io, go to developer guides, forms, and reactive forms. And in the reactive forms, there's a live demo if you want to see what it's all about, but let's make our own demo instead. So I'll scroll a little bit down, and it seems in order to start using this, I need the reactive forms module right here. Now a module is just like the one we built ourselves last lesson. A module is pretty much just a way for Angular to kind of put different pieces of code into small modules that you can decide to use or not to use. And if you use them, you'll get more functionality, but you'll also have to download more code, right, to execute that functionality. So it's kind of a situation where you need to consider, do you want to use that code? If not, don't add it anywhere, right? So we need to kind of, in order to start using their module inside of our beautiful chat module, we need to add it right here like this. So now I'm adding the reactive forms module as a module inside my chat module under the input right here in the ng module notation. So that's how you do it. Now I can start using the reactive forms module inside my application. Now let's just get started with creating our first field in here so we have an input field. Now we'll take the simplest way first. It's not the best way, but it's the simplest way. In order to kind of create a form control, which is in our case going to be an input field for text, we're going to use this line right here. So let's just put that into our chat component TypeScript file. And let's put in message right here. Message, that's just going to be a name. There we go, we have the message name, and then we need to import the form control up here. So now we have a message form control, and a message form control is pretty much, in my case, just going to be an input. So let's try and create that in the HTML. If you don't know, by the way, Angular is bound together like with 3 files default, right? So a component like this has 4 files out of the box. The first one is the spec file, that's just for testing. If you don't want it, you can just remove it, right? It's just for testing. I encourage you to test, but that's not for this video, so I just removed it. It's not a problem, it's not going to make anything fail anything. The second file that a component has is the TypeScript file. The TypeScript file is actually the glue. It binds together the HTML, the CSS with the actual TypeScript file, which is the one I'm in right now. So that's how they work together, these 3 files. Think of this as the guy who kind of needs to control and work with the things. This is the view that presents the thing, and this is the one that prettifies them and make them look shiny, right? So that's how they're bound together. Now we set up the message form control right here. Step 2, if we scroll down, is actually adding a label now to our HTML. So let's try and do that. Let's go to the HTML and add the label. Now think of a label like just something to make it pretty, and here we'll give the label just first a message name right here. That's just a name, that's just a string. So if we keep this for now, let's just put message in here so it doesn't fail. If I keep message, I could write message from Frodo, right? If I put that in here and we go back to our actual running application, you'll notice it says message from Frodo right here. So that's what you put in there. That's the actual message. Jump back here and get rid of most except the Frodo part. We say message and go back and you'll see I get a live refresh and now it says message. And we have the input field right here. I can start typing. Now, the cool thing is whenever I start typing, what actually happens is it puts the value that I put in the input field, it takes that and puts it into the form control class right here, meaning that it's actually now saved in here. That's pretty neat, right? So I have the information inside this guy. It's just a question, how would I get it out? And let me actually try and show you one way to get it out while we are still in the HTML. So let's make, right here, I'm going to make an h3 tag just to kind of show you something. And here we're going to use double curly brackets right here. Notice there are 2 of them. And inside that one, I can actually say message. I want to see what's inside the message. Now the problem is that it's still a form control. So let's have a look at the code. Notice it just says object. That's not very useful. I want to see what's inside here in the text. The cool thing is that a form control has something called value right here. Now when you put in the value, it'll actually live go and with 2-way binding, whenever I make a change to this input field right here, that change will go down here and be stored inside the form control. and automatically reply back and show anywhere where people are listening to the message, it'll print that value. So that's pretty neat. Let's try and see it running live right here. If I start typing now, hello Lars, notice it gets printed down here right away. And again, just to show you that it's anybody who listens, let's add 3 of these guys and try again. Now when I start typing, you see it 3 times, right? So that's what we call two-way binding, and that's pretty neat as well. Now the final thing we need to do to make this work is kind of have a submit. So we'll try and add a button right here, and let's just add it right below, a button, and it's going to just be called send message. There we go. And that button is going to have what we call a click event. Now a click event in Angular is a way for us to kind of explain to Angular that when you click this button, you should do something. And what I want to do is I want to send message. So I'll just put in the name right here for an actual method that I'm going to generate inside the TypeScript. So let's just Alt Enter right here, and I'll say create send message. And now we actually have this guy available as a method in here. You could also just write it manually if you want to. It's not that hard. Now when you have the send message right here, what we can try and do as the final thing is just console log this guy. And you'll notice that I can now, when I click the button, I can actually print the value right here, and I can print it to the console. Now it complains right here because if you don't want to return anything, you should actually explain the message should be void right here. But it's a return type of void. If you don't put it in there, nothing will happen. It won't explode or anything. It's just, again, courtesy to do it when you're writing code. So that's it. Let's try and see how our code works now. I'll go back to the UI. Let's try and open the developer tools. And if you haven't tried that, you can always right click and say inspect element. It'll pop up down here, and there's a lot of different things you can pick from. I'm going to pick the console right here, and let's just clean out the console. It might be different if you're in Chrome, but it's something like that. And then I'll put in a message like hello, and when I press send right here, boop, you'll see that message printed down here. When I say hello da 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 da, it prints down here, okay? So that means that we actually have a running message right here where we can send a message to the backend. So next lesson, let's try and get Socket.io in there. See you next time. Bye-bye.